Greetings YouTube and welcome back to bizzy.tv. My name is Mike and today we're going to continue on with writing code, which we finally started yesterday, and we're working on implementing our minimum viable product based on the feedback we received from our potential future customer. So the goal for today is to figure out how to implement authentication through Google. So let's jump into Visual Studio here. And as you recall, our temporary project name is Platinum Hydra. So we'll start working on our Platinum Hydra project. And Google Authentication is something I've never used before. So let's see if we can unravel how to do this. So let's pop up a browser here. And let's say ASP.NET Core Google Authentication. And let's see what we come up with. If there's any MSDN reference. MSDN is Microsoft's documentation. Let's see what we have here. This looks like something. So we need this in ASP.NET Core. This is November 1st. So let's make sure this applies to .NET Core. Okay, it does. Okay, so here's Google. So let's just read through what we're supposed to do. So we create our .NET Core application. We use authentication to individual user accounts, which we did not do when we created the project. So we might have to think about what needs to happen to make that work. But then we need to enable SSL. So SSL is web encryption, so we can turn that on. So let's actually work on that first. So it says right-click the project and select Properties, then tap Debug and enable SSL. Okay, let's see if we can do that. So we have the project here, Properties, Debug, enable SSL, copy this. And then where did it want us to put that? Let's see. Into the app URL. Oh, that's what we were looking for yesterday for the start app. Or the start URL that we wanted to use. Then we modify the services code in startup under configure services to reject all requests that are not coming over HTTPS. So that's good. So let's add that. So this is in startup.cs. Let's find that. And there's startup. And let's see, is that where I wanted this? Under configure services. So, okay, here's configure services. And let's see. So it wants us to pass some options into this. So let's just replace what's already there. And we'll pass that in. And this is an attribute that's defined in Microsoft.ASP.NetCore.MVC assembly. So we want to pull this in and use it. So now we can resolve it, and we've got that there. So now let's test our app and see if our encryption works now. So we should be able to access this now via HTTPS. And that did not work. Trying to determine the process ID of .NET.exe. Let's make that. Let's kill that. So that, I think that was related to the web server process, and What I did there is I just killed it so that it will spawn a new one when we debug this time. So let's restart that and see if it works. Yep, and however, we're still on HTTP, so it's not, somehow it is not enforcing our encryption. Let's check that again. Oh, we're on the wrong project. That's why we need to get back over to this one. And we need to run that. And that's where we had the error. Let's exit that again and launch from the correct project. Let's just exit this entire project and reload Visual Studio. So let's see, everything is stopped. Let's load up our Platinum Hydra project. And let's see if we run it. Looks like it's getting further this time. Nope, same error. Error attempting to determine the process ID of .NET.exe hosting the application. Okay, so one thing that comes up for me that has come up in the past is you need to run Visual Studio as administrator sometimes. So let's exit out of this and see if that resolves the problem. So let's right click on this and run as administrator, which is going to give us some elevated permissions when we're debugging code. So now we're running as administrator, and let's see if this makes any difference. So this illustrates an unfortunate reality with writing code, and that is you set off to do one thing and you get diverted into trying to fix something different. All right, let's try this again with elevated permissions. All right, if all else fails, we turn to Bing. So let's open up a browser here. Let's see, error occurred. Let's see if anyone else has run into this. Looks like they have here. When attempting to run with SSL enabled, I get the following error. Same thing that happened to us. So running the site with Control F5 installed the certificate, and then I was able to debug the site. All right, so I think the problem here is that Visual Studio ships with an SSL encryption certificate that runs locally, that is used locally to encrypt the content. But it looks like that until you run it with Control F5, so what we've been doing here the last couple times is we've been launching into debug, and it looks like what we need to do is run the application just without debug, which is what Control F5 does. And then that installs the Visual Studio testing certificate. So then we can go back and run it under debug, and it should work. So let's give that a shot. So we're just going to say here, start without debugging, Control F5 in the menu. And okay, so now it's prompting us. It says the project is configured to use SSL. To avoid SSL warnings, you can choose to trust the self-signed certificate. Do you want to trust the certificate? It will say yes. Then it's going to ask us if we want to install that certificate locally. We'll say yes. And now it looks like it's gonna, okay, so now you can see we're accessing our local page at the HTTPS. And let's make sure our login is still there. It's home login, right? Okay, so there's our login with Google page, and it's encrypted HTTPS. Okay, so that problem is solved. Now let's go back and try to run with debugging enabled. So we'll go back here and we'll hit the play button, which launches with debugging. Okay, cool. So now we're running with debugging and we're encrypted at the same time. So let's just test this one more time. And there's our login page. Okay, great. So let's go back and enable this some more. So enable SSL, we got that figured out. Use Secret Manager to store tokens assigned by login providers. The template used to create the sample project in this tutorial has code in startup which reads the configuration values from a secret store. As a best practice, it is not recommended to store the secrets in a configuration file since they can be checked into source control and that may be publicly accessible. Okay, so it looks like they've added a feature to ASP.NET Core which allows you to store secrets such as connection strings and passwords and so on your local machine without checking them into the source code repository, which is what we set up here with Tortoise. So we don't want, what they're saying is you don't want to save your passwords into the repository because down the road you might share that with other people and you don't want them to have all your passwords that were stored here. So what we'll do is let's look at the secret manager. So it says install the secret manager tool so that you can use it to store tokens assigned. Okay. So let's click on that and see if we can find where to download this tool. Okay, so add microsoft.extensions.secretmanager.tools to the tools section of the project.json. You can file and run .NET Restore. So let's do that. So let's open up project.json. And here's dependencies. Is it under tools? In the tools section, okay. Now it looks like the format here uses a version code, which they didn't give me, so I'm not sure this is going to work. Let's see here. Does it have it doesn't have a code example of. So it looks like they're missing something here in their documentation, unless I put this in the wrong place. Well, let's try .NET Restore anyway, and let's see what it comes up with. So we'll save this. And now we need a command prompt. Let's pin that so we can get to it next time. Looks like it's doing something. So while that's installing, I'll go over here and see what we're supposed to do after that gets installed. Test the secret manager tool by running the following command, .NET user secrets.h. Secret manager tool will display usage options and command help. So once we're done with this .NET restore, we'll do that. Oops, we got an error. Invalid character. Yeah, it wants a colon and a version. So let's see if we can figure out what version is supposed to be with this. And that didn't help. So let's go to where these packages are. And we'll search for the package that it's trying to get. And here it is. And I think this is the version string that it wants us to use. I'm kind of guessing here, but it looks like the same kind of version string. So let's put that in there and run this command again. Looks like it's doing something. Okay, and now let's use that. Oops, where did our documentation go here? Let's test the secret manager here. So that didn't seem to do anything. Let's look at the output here. So we ran that. Okay, restoring packages from Microsoft Extension Secret Manager Tools. And looks like it installed it. Did I type this wrong? Let's see where that's supposed to be. Let's go into source. Aha, we were in the wrong folder. So you need to be in the folder of your project before you run that command. So it looks like it worked this time. So the next step then is to go into the project file again in project.json, and we need to add an ID. And we need to generate our own ID. I don't think it needs to be anything in particular, it just needs to be unique. It says the value is arbitrary, but generally unique to the project, so we can just make it anything we want. And it looks like that goes right before the dependencies. So we'll take this, we'll take what they have here, and we'll just replace the value of it in our project. So right above the dependencies, we'll put that, and we just need to get rid of this. And there used to be a GUID. Yeah, here we go. Create GUID. So we'll copy that. So a GUID is a random string of characters. It stands for Globally Unique Identifier. And so here we go. We'll just copy it like that, and we'll exit that tool. And then that's a globally unique, randomly generated string of letters and numbers. So that'll be a good number to use for our user secrets ID. Okay, so back to our documentation here. And then it says, use the secret manager tool to set a secret. For example, in a command window, enter the following: .NET user secrets set my secret value of my secret. So let's give that a try. So if you look at the command usage here, we have clear, list, remove, and set as the things we can do with these secrets. So let's say .NET user secrets set test secret test value. Let's see how that works. Okay, now let's see if we can just list all the secrets. We ought to see the one we just created. So there's the secret that we stored, test secret and test value. So it looks like it's working. Okay, so we'll have that ready when we need it. And then it says accessing user secrets via configuration. Okay. So you can access those through configuration, add the Microsoft extensions configuration user secrets as a dependency, and then run restore. So let's go to the JSON file as a dependency. And we're going to have to go to NuGet and figure out what version applies to this. And is it 110? I'm assuming that's the version we're supposed to use. We'll give that a try. And then let's run that .NET restore again. So I think the .NET restore is just pulling down the project from NuGet and installing it locally. And that looks like it worked. All right, let's see where we are now. And then add the user secrets configuration source to the startup menu method. So here under startup, we're going to add builder.add user secrets inside of the environment is development. So let's go find the startup code here. And I think it was in the configure part. Is that right? No, it was in the startup. So here's startup, and before we build it, probably, yeah, we want to add it here. And let's fix the tabs on this. Looks like there's an assembly we need to pull in for this to work. Okay, so it's saying that there's an assembly mismatch here. So let's see if we can unravel this. It's saying that it's using two different versions of the assembly. So let's see, adds the user secrets configuration source. So user secrets uses, so it has version 1.1, and it uses configuration abstractions 1.1, which has a higher version than the referenced assembly abstractions. Okay. So what we need to do here is apparently the JSON file is referencing configuration abstractions version 1.000, and we need to change that to 1.1. So let's see here. But where is that referenced? Looking for where that dependency is here in the project file. Let's look here in dependencies. And let's look in references. No. So let's see if we can right click. So this is saying that user secrets expected JSON version to be 1.1. So let's just change this based on the suggestion the compiler is giving us. And let's see if that, and let's save that, and then let's run .NET Restore again. All right, so now that's happy. So let's go back over to the startup code, which was here, and see if this is and now that's happy. Good. So we got that taken care of. Let's compile this. Make sure we're still able to build. And we are, so that's good. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions here. So we added all that, and it says you can now access user secrets via the configuration API, string test config equals configuration mysecret. So let's actually try this. We probably don't need to do this, but I'm just curious to see it work. So let's copy that code, and we'll go over here after adding the user secrets, and we'll just try it. So let's say test config, and it's calling for mysecret. So let's go and make something called mysecret. And we'll put here hello bizzy.tv. And I think we need quotation marks around that. Okay, so it says that was saved. Let's list it just to make sure it's really there. Okay, so mysecret equals that string. So now when we get to this point in the code, we should be able to fetch that from the secret store. So let's debug to that point, and then it should break on that line, and we can look at the value of test config and see if it's what we expected it to be. Okay, so now we're stopped on that line of code. Let's step through it, and we're getting a because so what happened here is that we set up the configuration builder with the user secrets, but we didn't actually build the configuration until here. So we need to move this code down further. So let's do that. And we'll reload. And I guess we need to recompile as well. Put a breakpoint and start the debugger. And if we step through it now, okay, so let's see. So we got it. So the value of test config is now hello bizzy.tv. So that means that our secret manager is working properly and the code's able to find it and retrieve secrets. So now we can go ahead and register with Google to do our authentication. And when Google gives us our application key, we can store the application key in our secret store and not have to store it in the source control where someone else might see it if we eventually share this code with somebody else. So let's stop debugging here and let's go back to our instructions. Okay, so let's look at the next step. Let's see here. Okay, secret manager tool. And then we need to set up the Google instructions. Okay, this shows you how to enable users to sign in with Google account. Okay, we need to navigate to this page and sign in. So let's do that. And we'll sign in with our Google account here. Just a moment while I pull those credentials. And I'll paste the password in. Okay, so now we're in the Google API Manager apparently. So let's see what they need us to do here. So it says we log in and you're redirected to the API Manager library page. And click Create a Project and enter the application name. So let's create a project here. Call it Platinum Hydra. And I think we're going to need to select yes on that. We don't need updates. Create. And not sure exactly what happened there. It just took us somewhere else, maybe credentials. Dashboard. Library. Let's see what was supposed to happen. It says after accepting the dialog, redirected back to the library page, allowing you to choose features. Find Google Plus API in the list and click on its link to add the API feature. Okay, so we need Google Plus API, which is here. And then I'm assuming we have to click Enable on that. To add the API feature. Click Enable to add Google Plus sign-in feature to your app. Okay. Then create credentials to get started. Okay. That's exactly what it said here. Click Go to Credentials to configure the secrets. Choose the Google Plus API, web server, and user data. Okay. Google Plus API, web server, user data. Name, Auth 2.0 client ID. So it's probably going to be Platinum Hydra. Okay. So we'll just say Platinum Hydra is the name of our client ID. And authorized JavaScript origins. The origin URL of the client application. Okay, so where is it coming from? So let's see if we really have to provide that. So it looks like we can leave that blank, and we just need to tell it where to redirect back to after the user is authenticated. So what's going to happen here, if you're not familiar with OAuth, and is that a user is going to come to our web application. We're going to notice that they're not authenticated, they haven't signed in yet. We're going to redirect them over to Google to authenticate to Google, and then Google is going to redirect them back to our application. But Google needs to know where we want Google to send the user back to. So we need to provide that here in this box so that Google knows where to redirect them back to. So let's run our application then, and we'll find the URL that we want them to go to. So let's run this. And we'll take out the breakpoint. And home login was where we sent them from, but let's redirect them back to home login Google. So we'll use this whole thing as the redirect point that we want Google to send them back to. Okay, so that's that. So we'll create the client ID. Set up the OAuth 2.0 consent screen. So email address is going to be bizzy.tv@gmail.com. That's fine. Product name is going to be Platinum Hydra. Okay, so here's the credential that we're going to store as a secret. So let's see here. Let's see how they want us to store this as a secret on our side. Okay, so we're at this point in the process where we've been given a client ID that we need to store. Tap download to save a JSON file with application secrets, and done to complete creation of the new app. So let's click download, and we'll just save it, and we'll go to that folder. Okay, so client ID.json is what we just downloaded. So we have our client credentials. Close that out. Okay, so we're going to store, so it says open the JSON file and note the client ID and the client secret values that are present. And then we want to store both of those values in our secret manager that we installed previously. So let's put this over to the left so that we can remember what that looks like. And let's put this to the right. And let's open this file. And that's fine. So here's the client ID, and then see, what are the two things we needed? We need the client ID and the client secret. So here's the client ID, this big long thing, and then let's look for the client secret, which is this thing over here. So let's take the client ID first, and we'll copy that, and then let's jump over to the instructions again and our command prompt, and we're going to store that in our secret manager. First, let's clear that one we put in there before. And now we're going to set a new one called authentication Google client ID. And we'll paste that crazy long thing that we got. Okay, that worked. And then we'll say .NET secret set authentication Google client secret, and then we'll grab the other value that Google gave us, which is here, and we'll paste that in here, and we'll store that. And so now let's just list to make sure they're both in there the way they're supposed to be. And there they are. So obviously when we deploy this, so I'm running locally, which doesn't have any exposure to the outside world. So it's okay if you guys see these keys right now, because there's really nothing you can do with these. But obviously when we deploy to a server eventually, this is one part of the bizzy.tv experience where I'm going to have to store these secrets in a way that's not exposed to the whole stream. But for now, there's not really a problem with this. So we've gotten through, we're kind of out of time for today, but we have gotten through registering with Google. So we've registered our application with Google. Google has given us the ID for our application, which is here, and the secret that it wants us to use as a password. We've gotten encryption turned on with our website, so it's now responding to HTTPS, and it's only responding to HTTPS. We can no longer be unencrypted, which is good. And then we are all set now to begin the actual communication with Google to facilitate the login and the authentication. So that's where we'll pick it up tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you then. Bye.